Okay. So one question I have, and this is just more broadly about immortality, not specifically about intelligence, say, but just this larger issue of life extension that you're writing about in Fantastic Voyage. How do you think that the attainment of radical life extension, or ultimately even immortality, would transform human life and culture? What do you see as some of the most positive potentials that this would unleash? You know, how it would make life better, and also some of possibly the greatest risks, some of the stickier issues that such a radical shift in longevity might bring about.
The reason I brought up some of these other issues is that it really pertains to this question. Because if, psychologically we're not equipped to live 500 years the way we are now.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we were talking about, and what sometimes people just assume I'm talking about, is we're going to just live the way we are now, but, we'll be able to conquer disease and ultimately aging, and we're just going to live as human beings in our current form for hundreds, thousands of years, that would lead to a profound problem. I think we would develop a deep ennui, sort of a profound despair.
Can you say why?
Because I don't think psychologically we're equipped to do that, and also I think we would get bored with the level of intelligence we have and the level we have to experience. And I think in order to make this viable, we need not only radical life extension but radical life expansion. And then it does become not only tolerable but really a profound frontier where we can do, I think, or pursue the real purpose of life, which is the creation and appreciation of knowledge. And I mean knowledge in the broadest sense, to include music and art and literature, and science and technology, and relationships, which is another form of knowledge. And we're going to expand profoundly our ability to do that. And were it not for that fact, if we were just going to live the way we are now, such as we are, for 500 years, I think we would find that depressing. So that's really a response to that issue. Then sometimes people bring up, well, aren't we going to get overcrowded in the planet and overpopulation? And I really think that's a very easy issue to dispense with.
How so?
Well, we are mastering the world in terms of information. I mean, information is not just the sort of one special part of our economy and our existence. I mean, with the biotechnology revolution, all of our biology is becoming information. With nanotechnology, our physical world in terms of creation of products and food and everything can be manufactured by nanotechnology replicators that can make essentially any physical product. So everything becomes information. And the price performance of information doubles every year. Now, ultimately, radical life extension will extend the population. I mean, the first effect we've seen from added prosperity is that the more prosperous nations, as they become prosperous, we are making progress in that regard, lower their population growth, and the most advanced countries actually have negative population growth. But that will reverse again when we really, dramatically reduce the death rate. The birth rate then will again exceed the death rate, and the population will grow. But how quickly is it going to grow? It's going to grow. It's not going to double every year. I mean, it's going to add a few percent every year. So the doubling time of the human population will be far, far longer than the doubling time of the price performance of these information technologies. So to put it another way, I mean, the wealth creation in practical terms from nanotechnology, and I mentioned a few examples in terms of manufacturing anything and energy, is going to expand at explosive rates compared to the very slow expansion of the biological population. So we're going to be able to, very easily keep up with it. To give you another...
So what you're saying, just so I'm totally clear, so you're saying that the people who are concerned about issues like overpopulation, we're not going to be able to have children anymore if we're all living forever, that they're just operating from some rigid assumptions about what life's going to be like in the future, and that in addition to life extension technology, all these other technologies are going to be accelerating at an equally rapid rate, which is going to transform life as we know it, and we won't have resource issues, we won't have waste issues, we won't have pollution issues, et cetera. And so in the end, it's going to be such a different future, and technology is going to sort of fix all of our problems in one way or another.
Well, they're going to fix the problems we have today.
Okay.
I mean, I'll get to a new set of problems in a moment, but I think you summarized it well. People frequently will take one change and consider it on today's world as if nothing else is going to change. And most, futurist movies are like that. In AI, you had, human-level cyborgs, but everything else was the same, from the coffee makers to the cars, and there's no virtual reality. I mean, typically you see that. You really have to look at all the different changes, and if a futurist, a very prescient one in 1900 had said, well, we have a third of the population today in 1900 working on farms, I see that will be less than 2% in a century from now. People say, oh my God, everyone's going to starve. But not only are we not starving, America's a major food exporter. Well, how did that happen? Because new technologies, largely information-based, have improved productivity of not only food production but everything else, and that's going to continue to accelerate at much faster speeds than population growth.
Okay.
Now, so sometimes people say I'm an optimist because I'm talking about solving all problems, but these things will solve the problems we're struggling with now. But it's the nature of, and we've solved many types of problems, that we had 100 years ago. We don't worry that much about problems with, misformed horseshoes for horses and some kinds of things that, we've overcome. But technology is a double-edged sword. It empowers our creative and destructive side. I had this conversation with Bill Joy in September 1998, gave him a copy of The Age of Spiritual Machines, which ultimately led him to write his Wired cover story, Why the Future Doesn't Need Us, and articulate, which I had actually articulated in Age of Spiritual Machines, these downsides of GNR, Genetics, Nanotechnology, and Robotics. And, what was controversial about his article is his call for relinquishment, saying, well, let's keep the good technologies, but, those dangerous ones like nanotechnology and biotechnology, let's just not do those. I pointed out that, all of technology is ultimately leading to those dangerous technologies, and that technology is inherently dangerous, and in fact, banning at a broad scale technology just drives it underground, where it's actually more dangerous, because then the responsible practitioners we're counting on to protect us don't have easy access to the tools. I think the most dangerous route, though, would be attempts to relinquish it, which really, if one seriously tried to do that, would require a totalitarian system. I mean, that was the sort of moral of the Brave New World story. And it doesn't work. It just drives the technologies underground, where it becomes very unstable. What we need to do is identify these risks. We need ethical standards, and which have worked very well in the genetic community. The Asilomar Conference ethical guidelines have worked in biotechnology, at least to prevent inadvertent problems, to prevent, intentional abuse or misuse by a terrorist, for example. That's going to require explicit development of defensive technologies, which we need to accelerate. But we can take some comfort from one test case, which is software viruses. I mean, software viruses have in fact been getting more and more sophisticated. I mean, the latest crop are very clever, and so the opponent is, getting more and more dangerous. Yet we've succeeded in keeping that, if not to a nuisance level, to a pretty minor level of problem. The internet has never been taken down for even a minute. Occasionally, there are problems that erupt that do cost billions of dollars, but no one would suggest, well, let's do away with the internet because the problem of software viruses is so difficult. And the reason it works well is we actually have no regulation.